Hello, thank you for joining us. I'm here again with Rachel Mackenzie from Rachel's Vineyard. Thank you for joining us, Rachel.
Great to be here.
For those of you who don't know, Rachel runs Rachel's Vineyard in the Midlands, and I know you're also the UK director for Rachel's Vineyard, aren't you?
That's right, yeah.
Can you just remind us about what Rachel's Vineyard is all about?
So Rachel's Vineyard is a support for those that are affected by abortion. So that can be the mothers, the fathers, the grandparents, and also friends who have taken their friends for an abortion, and those that work in the abortion industry. So anybody that's affected by abortion can come to a Rachel's Vineyard retreat.
And just a reminder, it's for men as well, isn't it? And I know that you have a
Absolutely.
lot of men who now come on retreats, which is really good to recognise that they need that healing too. So I thought today the topic we could discuss is buffer zones. And I thought, you'd be able to bring into this your own experience of having 2 abortions, but also the experience of many people, women and men, who've spoken to you about how abortion has affected them, but obviously particularly looking at the women and the experience they had going to abortion centres and connecting that with the issue of buffer zones. So I wanted to start just by asking you particularly about your own experience, Rachel, when you had your abortions, because I know these were abortions at abortion centres rather than something that you had at home with pills. When you had your abortions, Rachel, I believe there wasn't anyone outside the abortion centres. Would it have made a difference if there was anyone there either praying or offering help? Would that have had any impact on you, do you think?
Well, the short answer is no. It definitely wouldn't have. And for me to stay really well, I have to stay in the truth. And there's no use me fantasising that if somebody had been there, that would have made all the difference for me, because it wouldn't have. I was so set on what I was going to do, nobody was going to stop me. But I know that's not the case for everybody.
And I do think it's important to be really real about this, because we're not saying, are we, that by people standing outside abortion centres and offering help, that every woman who's given that alternative will suddenly choose life. And those who are outside abortion centres certainly aren't trying to force people to make that decision. Although you and I would both agree that we would want the law to change and for abortion to be illegal, because we know the damage it causes. When we're outside abortion centres, we are there just to offer that help to those who want it, as well as to pray and to make sure people are informed.
Exactly, yeah. We just want to give people a choice, a real choice, because I know, not just myself, who didn't want anybody outside, but the countless women and men tell me that when they go inside the abortion centre, especially the mothers, they're only given one choice, and that's abortion. They're not offered any other alternative. So how are they going to find about it? How are they going to find out about it unless we're there?
So what about when people say, look, women have already made up their minds when they're going to abortion centres, so what is the point of there being anyone outside? Surely this is something that they've thought long and hard about before they've got to the abortion centre. Is that your experience either from yourself or people that you've spoken to?
There's a few things I'd like to say about this, Isabel. I think firstly, if we've all set our mind on abortion, why is it that so many regret abortion? Why is it that, groups like Rachel's Vineyard are there after the event and having to give them support because it's not what they wanted, first of all? Why is it also that when people do pop those pills, that very often immediately they regret it, and they're searching the internet and looking for sites like abortion pill reversal from our great friend Dr. Dermot? And for me, you see, when it's an analogy I always use, that when my car breaks down, I know what to do. I know to call the recovery. I know, years ago I could ring my dad, I could ring other people. But when your car first breaks down, you don't know the choices that are out there. It's the first time it's happened. So when you're pregnant and in a crisis pregnancy or an unplanned pregnancy, very often people don't know the alternatives. They don't know that there's help out there. So that's why we need to be there. To give that choice. Yeah.
In fact, I remember a couple I knew who were praying outside an abortion centre, and one of them said to me that someone had obviously said to her, oh, there's no point going there. Women have made up their minds. And those doubts actually began to creep in, and she was thinking, is this the case? Has every woman made up their mind? Is there a point? And she said that very day she was standing there, and a woman came down the road with a pram and just paused and said, I want you to know, by the way, that a few years ago, my daughter came here for an abortion. And it was because there was people outside one of your group that she changed her mind. She never told you on the day, but this is my granddaughter and she's here because of you. And I think we often don't know those stories. You know, sometimes people don't even stop to say what a difference it's made to them. But, you know, just from the fact that we know so many women have changed their minds after having a conversation shows that everybody's mind isn't hard and fast made up. I mean, with every decision we make in life, we sometimes change our minds, don't we? And even sometimes about important decisions. Either our circumstances change, our emotional state changes, all sorts of things, which can affect our decisions. And abortion is no different in that regard.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what about that then, Rachel? You were saying, you were mentioning some people don't know about the help that's available to them. We're told that women going into abortion centres will be informed when they're in the abortion centre about all the alternatives. Is that what women say to you who talk to you about their abortion regret, that they were informed about alternatives?
In all the time that I have helped, I'd say over 1,000 women now, it's only happened once. In all that time, one woman said, I was actually told all the alternatives. And I said, oh, that's actually something I never hear. So what do you do for a living? And she said, I'm a medical secretary for a legal firm. So they probably were thinking, oh, well, we better do things the proper way and mention the alternatives. But all the others were never told. I remember when you interviewed Natalia and she heard about, you know, abortion pill reversal. And she was just devastated. She never even knew that existed and what a difference that would have made to her. Other women say, where were you? Where were you when, you know, because they're here, I do 40 days. You know, if only you were stood there for me. You know, we've got a great friend, haven't we, that was looking around and didn't know what she was looking for and realises now she was looking for people that would have helped her.
Yeah, yeah. And I just think there's so many different types of help that are available to people going into an abortion centre, depending on their problems, whether that's, you know, babysitting, you know, childcare, financial help, accommodation, all these sorts of things that organisations like the Good Counsel Network help provide for women. And these are the kinds of things that only sometimes groups like that will provide, which are certainly not going to be signposted to by the likes of, you know, BPAS and Mary Stopes and these abortion providers. And I know that's what many women have told me, that when they've gone for their abortion, they simply had no idea that there was somebody who might help sort their bills out or, you know, care for their other children, one, you know, take them to school or whatever, you know, the sort of random problems that we have that people bring to us. That we are able to help with, but they had no knowledge.
And that help that you give them, when you always say, don't you know, well, what's the obstacle? What's stopping you? What's preventing you from carrying on with this pregnancy? And the reasons they give and the reasons they tell me at Rachel's Vineyard of why they had the abortion is never one of the 4 categories. So it's, you know, that it doesn't sound those 4 categories, you know, financial help, you know, I can't pay my rent. And if somebody can help do that, surely that's better than ending their child's life. It's a win-win for everybody, except for the abortion industry.
Yeah, and like you say, why not at least let women know so that they're informed? But what about other information that people should know when they're considering an abortion? For example, the risks and the complications that there might be with having an abortion. I know sometimes people outside abortion centres might help make sure that women are aware of those before making that decision. Is that something that they would be informed about anyway if they went into the abortion centre, do you think?
I feel like I'm just going to constantly be saying no to you, Isabel, but it's no. Because I know for myself and for all the other women, I really am speaking for every single woman that's been for an abortion and come to Rachel's Vineyard and I've spoken to. When I have operations, and unfortunately I've had quite a few operations, that sadly are complications from one of the abortions, I not only have all the risks read out to me, I have to sign, do I know these are the risks? And then when I've heard them all, and it's quite frightening, you then get the anaesthetist come and go through them again to make sure that you are really making an informed decision. And so why is it when you go for a procedure, but let's call it right, an abortion, all of a sudden you're not told of all the complications, and as we both know, 1 in 17 end up in hospital after taking the pills by post at home?
I find it so frustrating that in one way, abortion is branded as healthcare. This is what we're always being told by the government, by abortion providers. It's just a healthcare procedure. If it is healthcare, why isn't it treated, like you say, as other healthcare is treated, when you have to be informed about risks and complications before you have that procedure done? And we all know it's because there's an agenda. If people don't have the abortion, then that's no business for the abortion centres.
There's no money to be made.
Yeah. What about development of the child inside the woman, whether it's an embryonic stage or a fetal stage? Do you think most women going for an abortion are aware of that stage of development, of what's actually happening inside them, which obviously could be a factor for some women? Is that something that you've ever talked to women about?
I think the majority of women who are going for an abortion don't even know it's human. I think that the layers of fear and that frozen state of panic, that suddenly any reminder of their past biology has gone out the window. And it's so helpful to have somebody outside that will actually educate them again, or educate them for the first time of this is your baby, or and what stage they're at. Many don't know that, and I think knowing that, you never get a scan, or actually you do get a scan but the sound is turned off and they never show you the scan.
I remember talking to a woman who was 12 weeks pregnant, and she said to me that she'd gone to her doctor specifically to ask, does this look like a baby? What is it like at this stage? Because that was for her the deciding factor as to whether she would have an abortion or not. And the doctor said to her, it's just a blob, that's all it is. And so she said to me, that's why I'm getting an abortion now, before it actually turns into anything. Yeah. And I said, well, have you actually looked at pictures? I said, don't take my word for it, let's have a look. And we found some pictures online, and I have to say it took a while before she would believe me. She was so shocked that the doctor would have deceived her. Obviously, you and I know what a 12-week-old child looks like in the womb. At that stage, it's got arms, it's got legs, it's very developed at 12 weeks. Yeah. And yet this wasn't what she'd been told, even when she specifically asked her doctor to try and find out that information.
And also what's so tragic is the women that are having the pills by post often find that it does look like a baby because they're passing their baby at home through an abortion.
But too late for it to affect their decision.
And I know far too many women that have actually asked for the remains of their children, through the abortion, and they've taken it home. Often it's put into the freezer, but they've had a sneaky look first. And I wouldn't want to trigger anybody, on this podcast, but it was definitely human, and it was definitely their baby, and they will never, ever, ever get that image out their head.
So for those who are thinking it's somehow kind to just not let women know that, like you're saying, they will find out at some way, and that will be harder when they found out when it's too late to change their mind about it. That's the real pain that they have to live with. And I remember again somebody that we both know, who doesn't mind her name being shared, Rita, who's talked about how she got the abortion reversal pill, and she says how she went into the abortion centre with a list of questions because there was lots of things she wanted to know before she made her decision. And after the first question, they simply said to her, it's as simple as this: do you want an abortion or not? So those who are thinking they're going in for a counselling session, that isn't really what's going to happen.
And the women that go in as well, it's very often a rush decision. I was speaking to a woman recently that didn't even know she was in an abortion centre. She didn't even know that's where she was at. She thought she was going somewhere to get some help. Yeah. And the same day had an abortion. Or somebody else that I know, who got pregnant by a doctor, and, from being pregnant to the abortion was hours. How can you make a decision like that? You can't make a decision.
I think you're right. Just that basic communication and having chance to have a time to talk to somebody is very important, because sometimes these decisions can be so rushed. And I know plenty of women who've said to me that they wish they just thought about it a bit more, because sometimes that panic sets in and it's just that sort of knee-jerk default thing of I've just got to be unpregnant again, and the only way is to have an abortion. I can think of a situation, and I know I've shared this with you before, of when I was outside the abortion centre and a young man came out and said to me, I actually asked him, was there any help that we could give to somebody that was inside the abortion centre, his girlfriend, and he was like, oh no, I already agree with you. I don't want my girlfriend to have an abortion, but I don't want to lose my girlfriend, so I'm going to go along with it. And he then said he was going to the shops, and he talked to me on his way back. So he went off. Meanwhile, a young woman comes out saying, have you seen my boyfriend? And I said, I think it's a chap who's just gone to the shops, but could we offer you any help at all? And she said, well, not really, because I'm with you. I don't want an abortion, but, I don't want to lose my boyfriend. So, of course, when he came back, we said to them, you two have got to talk. And within seconds, they were hugging. They just couldn't believe that the fact that they very nearly had an abortion, simply because they hadn't communicated, So something as simple as that can be the reason that somebody makes a decision which is just life-changing for them and life-ending for their child. And yet all it took was somebody to say, just talk, So something else I just think maybe should be touched on, Rachel. Well, when we're outside abortion centres, and I say we because I think it's important for people to know that someone like yourself who's had abortion goes outside abortion centres, and many of our volunteers who've been through abortions are there now outside abortion centres offering help and praying. We're also there, aren't we, for people who've had an abortion? Because I know sometimes people can think, and even good pro-life people can think, oh, it's too late, they've had an abortion, But that's not the case, is it? When we're outside abortion centres, we're there for people as they come out, even if an abortion is completed.
And those people that come out and the abortion is completed and they will be broken, and they need somewhere that they know they're going to be loved without judgment. And, I know yourself and many others, guide them to Rachel's Vineyard. And by coming to Rachel's Vineyard and getting the support they need, it stops them repeating it, because that's what happens. So even those pro-lifers out there thinking, oh, it's too late. It's never it's too late for this baby, but it's not too late for the mother, to get help and support. And it will maybe just stop that next abortion, which often it does. I mean, Shannon, that did a great video, she would have repeated it again if she hadn't have been to Rachel's Vineyard and got the support she needed, and was able to reach out and go, gosh, I feel like I'm going to have another abortion, but, got the support and the help. And also, and her baby's alive.
Saving women from years or decades. I mean, I know you and I both know people who've been 70s, 80s, who've spent years grieving a child because they didn't know there was anyone who could help them deal with the emotions that they were going through. So wouldn't it have been so much better that at least when they had that abortion, if someone had been there to say, if you do need some support later on, and if you do, find that you want some help finding peace again, then here's where you can go.
Because, the child has died, but part of them dies when they've had an abortion. And, like you say, all those decades, but it's not decades of, sat at home grieving. It's also self-harm, suicidal ideation, nightmares that go on and on, relentless throughout the years, picking really bad relationships, using drugs, drink, sex, anything to fix the feeling, but it never quite fixes it.
What about the other aspect of why people are outside abortion centres then, Rachel? I mean, I know when we're there to offer help if anyone wants it. We're also there to pray, aren't we? So I know sometimes people would say, what's the point of that? People can understand being there to offer that support and that alternatives, but being there in prayer, isn't prayer just something for a church anyway? What?
Well, this, first of all, I mean, we're definitely in a spiritual battle. Abortion is, it's one of the most demonic things on this earth, and it's, a sacrifice, it's a child sacrifice. So we are in a spiritual battle. I know for myself, I'm smiling when you're on about prayer. When I first came to be part of 40 Days, and, I love the rosary, and I got my rosary, but I didn't want to get my rosary beads out. So I'd get them out, and if I just put in my pocket and just do it like this, because it's just all about, it's pride. And I didn't want to come across as a religious nutter. I didn't want to come across as somebody that was so over-spiritualised. And I thought, what, Rachel, just get over yourself. And I got my beads out and I just started praying. And within minutes, a woman walked past and she said, that was the sign I was looking for. That was the sign I was looking for. And so now I'll, always get my beads out, because some people will change their mind without any words being spoken between us and them. It's words we're speaking to God that changes people's hearts.
And I always think, in a way, people say, it's more appropriate to pray in a church or whatever. Actually, if we're praying about abortion, surely the most appropriate place to be is actually at the abortion centre, I think there couldn't be a more appropriate place. And I sometimes find it frustrating that the people telling me how I should live out my faith are people who often don't even share my faith. It's like, actually, I think this is a very appropriate place to pray, where something so terrible is happening, and women are going through something so awful, and obviously children's lives are being ended. And I also think maybe people need to recognise that prayer isn't something to be feared. Prayer always brings about good. Even if someone was praying for the wrong intentions, God can make good of that. Yeah. And prayer will always bring about good, never evil.
And for me, prayer is the only thing that ever takes away fear. Because fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. And that changes when you start doing the prayers. That's when all fear is removed. Mm.
What about those that would say, though, that, regardless of what your intentions are or the support that you might be offering, some people going to an abortion centre will feel uncomfortable at seeing people standing there with their leaflets or their rosary beads. How do we respond to that, Rachel, or how do you respond to that?
I think that day is such a traumatic day of so many emotions. Somebody standing outside an abortion centre, I can't see how it could possibly make your day worse. And even if it's annoyed you or niddled you, surely you'd think, well, if they're there for other people, even though that's not a choice I want to go for myself, surely that's a good thing. Mm. But what they've often bought into as well is the media of saying, well, they're outside there protesting and judging. I had one woman that came to Rachel's Vineyard who remembers the people outside. She said, well, the day of the abortion, I went inside. There was protesters outside, and I didn't stop her because it was her story. But in the break, I said, what were the protesters doing, as you call them? And sure, they were praying. And we talked a bit more, and she was like, wow, I've actually bought into the language out there in the media that you're protesting, that you're sort of standing there with banners, shouting and screaming. And for me, besides it's the biggest lie ever, surely by now their cameras would have caught us doing that.
Yeah. And I just think just worth picking up on something you said about, how the media share this, because I do think this is actually a really big and a very sad problem, that some people genuinely do come to the abortion centre quite fearful of those who are praying and offering help. If they really knew why they were there, that they're there simply to offer alternatives to those who want them, to pray for those, whether they've had an abortion, whether they're considering abortion, whether they work there, we're there to pray for them, pray for their good, not for their evil. If they really knew that, why would they be fearful? Why would they be uncomfortable of that? And it's because they, like you say, they've bought into the lies that have been sold. And it's understandable, considering how many lies are out there, that people are there to judge them and to be self-righteous and to condemn them and all those kinds of things. And the truth is that probably the people that they're meeting there have themselves been through abortions, because half the volunteers are themselves post-abortive. So I find that all really sad and quite shameful from the media. And
frustrating. Yeah.
So then, Rachel, what if we're really pro-choice then? People like to talk about the term pro-choice. If we really care about choice and really care about women, what do we think of buffer zones?
Well, where's the choice? Why are we being buffered out? Why are we being removed as the alternative choice? And I say alternative choices, because there's so many choices that we offer them, and yet in the abortion centre there's only one. So anybody that voted for that buffer zone, they're not pro-choice, they're pro-abort.
Mm. And I've heard this from so many people who've had abortions, that they actually aren't happy with the term pro-choice anymore, because they would say, where was my choice when I went to have an abortion? There were literally no other options. I had an abortion because for me, it was the only thing on the table. So I think that's the kind of key point in all this. Why would you want to stop somebody? If you really cared about women, why would you want to prevent them from having some options open to them? And whether you recognise the importance of prayer or not, why would you be bothered about somebody saying prayers for someone else's good? Surely that's got to be, at the very least, innocuous, even if it's not positive. Like I say, it's certainly nothing that can ever bring about ill at all.
Exactly.
So thank you very much for what you do, not only with Rachel's Vineyard, but for your work praying near abortion centres and offering help there. And for anyone at home who does that, for anyone who's watching this, who takes part in whether it's 40 Days for Life or vigils organised by Good Counsel Network, or just goes as an individual, if you're there in compassion and in truth outside abortion centres, then thank you so much for what you do. We need more people like you being there. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our channels, please do that. If you've got any suggestions for future topics that you'd like myself or Rachel to talk about, and some questions you'd like put to Rachel, just get in touch with us and drop us an email. And thank you for being with us today.